Welcome everybody, good morning. If anyone's in the chat already, could you give us a sign? What's the audio like? It should be okay, but I don't want to take anything for granted. We'll just kick things off having a little bit of a chat first and let some people join in as and when they please. Four people, no one chatting. $19.99. Good evening. Evening, where are you in the world? Dunphy, thank you very much. That's good to know. Five viewers, two chatters on YouTube, 3. The gun named Blaze. Good evening, good morning, good day, welcome. Cheers, 99, thank you. So, early adopters, welcome. I'm keeping things ticking over for MD while she's taking a little break, but I'm pretty sure she'll be back in the new year. But yeah, I figure it's the least that I can do. She's put all the energy and all of the time into establishing YouTube channel and Twitch channel and a community, and I would hate for it to atrophy while she's taking a well-earned break and a well-needed break. UK, excellent. Whereabouts in the UK are you from? Zamunda. Excellent. I need to take a trip to Zamunda myself. Can't wait till March for the second one to come out. But I got the first movie on 4K a few weeks ago, so I need to check it out. Apparently the audio track is amazing. Good to know. 6 viewers. Welcome everybody. I'm sorry you've got a fat bald guy instead of MD's beautiful face, but as I mentioned, she's taking a well-needed break. Crawley, nice. As you can tell, I'm from a little further north. Warland. Hope her all the best. Hope her all the best, and you as well. Thank you very much. That's very kind. We had a lovely, as lovely a Christmas day as one could expect under given circumstances. Everyone who needs to travel further than a couple of miles to see family and friends, I guess, feel pretty stranded at the moment. That's certainly true of me. I've got family. All my family is in the UK. MD's is in California, and we're both in Canada. So, unable to travel through our own will. Health risks are just too great. And it's been a very unique Christmas. Did you have a nice Christmas? Yeah, thanks, Mark. It was really, under the circumstances, as I say, it was as good as we could have hoped. Really lovely. It was an opportunity for me to spoil MD as much as I possibly could, and hopefully I did. But yeah, I tell you, cooking Christmas dinner like a British gum duke-you-in. Welcome, good evening. Having to cook a Christmas dinner, a British one, from scratch, has put a complete spin on how much effort my mother went to every year when I was a kid. My sister and I were kids. Because, my God, 4 or 5 hours prep on Christmas Eve to make sure everything goes smoothly on Christmas Day. Cooking the bird, cooking the vegetables, cooking the puddings, and then 4 or 5 hours cooking for 25 minutes eating. Intellectually, doesn't seem worth the effort, but emotionally, I wouldn't have changed anything. It was a brilliant day. Did MD get Xbox Series X? There is a shortage in Alberta, pretty much as there is for the rest of the world, and I couldn't get my hands on one. No, she didn't. But we'll see. We'll see what the availability is like in the new year. Everywhere is sold out right now. In fact, everywhere is still selling out of both consoles. Pretty sure that we get PS5 first, but again, depends on what the supply is like. 13 viewers, thank you for responding to your notifications on your mobile devices and on your web browsers, and for sticking around when you don't see MD's beauty and there's a bald British guy in front of you. So thank you for sticking around in spite of MD not being here, keeping the channels ticking over while she's taking a break. Cobus Nell, welcome. Good to see you again, thank you. Would you say you get busy at this time of year? I ask because a majority of my time is solving lore, dealing with icy roads in the parking lot and other things. Busy. Professionally, the push to Christmas is always traditionally a pretty busy time, mostly because you don't want to leave whatever you're working on in a rotten state. You know, it's like making your bed in the morning. You don't want to have to make it right when you're tired and at the end of what might be a difficult day. So, yeah, you've got to leave the work in good order. At home, cooking the Christmas dinner was time consuming and labor intensive, and wrapping all the gifts up was fun. Making sure the house was somewhat clean and tidy was good, but you know, there's time for both. There's time to be busy, there's time to rest, there is time to be merry as well. So hopefully you all have had a lovely Christmas, and you're treating yourselves to some food, some drink, some gifts, and some rest. The last days of 2020, I'm pretty sure we'll all like to see the back of it. MD's been saying actually for a few days now that as difficult and horrible as this year has been, she and I have had some opportunities to make some pretty cast iron memories. And you know, for all of its tragedy, it's got some. Speaking of the holidays, do you have a favourite fictional Christmas or something alike? What do you mean, Gum Gum? Christmas was real. We didn't make it up. So, yeah, what do you mean? You don't give yourself enough credit. Yeah, I don't, and that's the point. Relentless humility. That's the goal. Do you have a favourite fictional Christmas? No, I don't. In fiction literature? Fiction? No. The best Christmas in fiction for me is Christmas itself. 9 viewers. We hit 16. We've peaked already, everybody. This is the near instant drop off from success. It's people not seeing MD and getting fed up that I'm just talking and not streaming anything. Okay, so let us get the game in order so that we can at least give it a start. So I didn't stream since before Christmas. The 22nd was my last day streaming, which was... crumbs, when was that? Tuesday last week. And it's Sunday morning. Thank you for joining me on Sunday morning. Hopefully you're all well. Hopefully you're all treating yourselves well. You're all happy. You've had a lovely Christmas. Tell me about your Christmases. Tell me what lovely presents Father Christmas left for you under the tree. What popular culture merchandise did Santa leave you? I think that's probably a better question these days. Alright, 11. Stalwart. MD fans helping me deal with my continuing blind playthrough of Proteus. Let's switch to some gameplay. "11 minutes in. Let's get this kicked off." Excavation was the last one I played through the other day, last Tuesday. This is Marksman. Got 7 runes so far. A heavily guarded military train depot used to transport runes out of the acid pits. Awesome. Mark, you got Cyberpunk. What do you think of it so far? There's a good amount of chatter on Twitter about the new patch this morning. I've not played it yet. I have not installed it. I actually think MD is in the next room. She's downloaded the latest patch, and hopefully a lot of the issues that she found with it have been addressed. But I guess we'll see. 17 viewers. Excellent. Thank you all for joining me this Sunday morning. Sunday morning in Mountain. I do have to ask, how far should Lord... Sorry, I know I've been saying let's get the game started, but Gumgum has asked a really good question. I do have to ask, how far should lore go in terms of logic? Like, I can handle believing in something and it actually works, but something like a fire-breathing planet kind of draws me back. In short, how much is too much nonsense? I don't think there's any such thing as too much nonsense. I think you've got to stimulate the imagination of your viewer or your reader or your listener. I don't think, physical accuracy. My colleagues will tell you if you asked, I'm a real pedant for physical accuracy when it comes to actually, doing the job that I am contractually obliged to. But I think in sci-fi writing, I think plenty would agree that you bend the rules in service of an entertaining story or an entertaining piece of art, whether it's cinema or music or whatever. But you've got to stay logical within the framework that you make. Like, I think the worst writing can be is lazy and changes the rules to suit its own circumstance. Like, if you establish a rule in the first act that your character then has to break to get out of trouble in the second, that's quite lazy, and it's a disservice to all of the work that you've put into forming a watertight premise. Fire-breathing planets, I do quite like the idea of. I mean, we live on one of those. So I don't think it's too far out of the question to characterize what would you call it, a geologically active planet as fire-breathing. I quite enjoy that. But it's got to be in servitude of entertainment and what the story that you want to tell and what you think your audience is going to get out of it. Like, there's loads of mixed things, loads of mixed guidance. I think it was I forget, was it Orson Welles who said, when you write something, write for one person, don't write to try to satisfy everybody. Have one person in your mind who will like it. And I imagine that to be very freeing when you've got to write, because you know what the person would like. A non sequitur, I wasn't looking for that word. I'm simple enough to not know how to use that word effectively in discourse, but you might be right. You probably are. Okay, so before people run away, Dumphy, you have the Series X and it's not too bad, but I have a friend who has the normal Xbox and it's horrific. Oh, you're talking about Cyberpunk. Right. I'm sorry for your friend. Kinda. Okay, everybody. Let's see what Proteus is going to do to me today. Marksman. I wonder whether there's lots of sniping involved here. Let's get our sniping on. So if you are joining me for the first time playing this, this is one of the most beautiful Doom-alikes I've seen. I think the tech is gorgeous, the way that it's rendered is gorgeous. It runs at, easily runs at 60 plus. So I think it's, I'm not sure what the team size was developing this. But it's, I think it's an indie. It is in early access at the moment. It's about 20 Canadian on Steam. And with an option to buy the soundtrack as DLC. That's fantasy, not science fiction. I disagree with that. I think science fiction is still going to have its rules bent just a little bit. I think everything needs to be coherent within itself. You've got to treat your audience with some respect. Like, it's a base level of respect that they've been awake in the first act to know that you're abusing their trust. And I think science fiction is fiction written within what you already know about capability of science, and fantasy is not reliant on a prior understanding. That's how I've always understood it. I'm sure there's writers in the chat who know what's correct and will tell me how wrong I am. Kalimachus 33. I think magic realism and abstract narrative is just as obliged to internal cohesion. I think you can't write rules to get you can't rewrite rules or change the rules based on what your characters need. You've got to establish rules, you've got to establish a framework that is familiar, you've got to solve the problem the same way. Ultimately it boils down to the structure of a story. And I don't think there is a genre that should be less beholden to those rules as anything else, as any other. When I watch a crime thriller, I don't want there to be new rules in the third act that gets the hero out of trouble, or gets the antagonist out of trouble. I think writing in video games should be you know, just as watertight. I think it's a betrayal of the audience's trust. You know, I don't think writing or any other kind of creative endeavor should come with an asterisk. It's like good for games, good for, you know, what you're saying there is we are talking about genres. Magic realism is less beholden. What you're saying is that fantasy is less beholden to great writing or watertight plots. I don't think that's true or fair. It's one of the worst attitudes that I've met, actually, in the games industry, when someone comes up with bullshit artwork, which is often the case. Not, fortunately, in the companies that I've worked for, but you get lots of student portfolios where they say, oh, for a fantasy game I can get away with the proportions not being right. No. It's lazy. The older I get, the less time I have for lazy. Oops. Oh, damn it. I asked GamerMD83 this once, but do you favour Sherlock being in... Dreams in real life are not necessarily coherent, and literature that follows them should reflect that. Well, dreams are... as far as I've experienced dreams, they are not limited to narrative structure, but we're talking about narrative structure. We're not talking about stream of consciousness. Narrative structure is an entertainment form. These days, has to fit a pattern, otherwise it's not familiar enough to be enjoyable. Creative problem solving has to fit within a particular framework, regardless of whether it's a painting, a sculpture, a film, a game, book, poem, piece of music. Calimachus, I don't think you're conflating fantasy with magic realism and fantasy. I think you're conflating dreams with works of literature, and I think that's changing the rules. That's distracting the point, and the point is, if we're authors, we're authors. If we're dreamers, then dreams inspire the work. But the structure of one, you couldn't take an abstract dream structure and apply it to a movie and expect people to enjoy it just the same. If it was weird and stressful, you still have to accommodate a familiar structure, I think, if you want people to get it. You don't have to apologise for anything, Gum Gum. Do you play other games? I played Sonic 2 yesterday. Playing Homeworld at the moment again, which is really good. The remaster, not the original, but the remaster's pretty great. Offers the similar challenge. Just playing this on MD's stream because it's a little bit different from what she might play, and it offers something that an audience a little bit more broad than the RPG audience that she usually maintains might like. Sherlock in the modern day, I quite like it, but you could, and this is the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock, I quite like it, But I also get the feeling that you could dress that in any clothes and those stories would still be as good. You know, they're based on Conan Doyle. I don't think it needs to be Sherlock to be as successful. Oh no, damn you. Depends on the movie. Not all movies follow an orderly narrative. Okay, cite some example. If there is a movie that doesn't follow orderly narrative, as in a 3-act structure, with a protagonist, antagonist, jeopardy, threat, relationships, I'm kind of all ears, because that sounds interesting. Shoot. I've ever tried working on fan fiction? No, I really don't like fan fiction. I don't like fan fiction. I don't like fan art either. Fan art as a demonstration of skill, I think, is fair. But if an artist wants to take an audience on a journey, it should be their own journey. Ow! Okay, I'm going to have to look up Derek Jarman movies from the 1980s. Because this is a good conversation. Unfortunately, I've not seen any of those. Not the stuff that he's written, anyway. He's directed 90? God, he directed Pet Shop Boys videos. Lots of them. Am I out of their view? Yes. Awesome. The sort who writes one sequel and afterwards Yeah, I mean, it's fine. My tastes are not to everybody's. I don't hold anyone to the same kind of oh shit. I know what I want to see in terms of like people that I want to work with or learn from. I'm far more interested in original solutions to problems. And granted, I think within a framework of someone else's universe, there are original ways to solve existing problems, literarily speaking or visually speaking. For example, Mandalorian is, I feel, a brilliant series, but it's a work of fan fiction. But I saw Tenet a couple of days ago, which is a completely original work. And an original universe with original jeopardy, an interesting way of telling time travel story. And I know which one I prefer in terms of that kind of work. Star Wars The Old Republic fanfiction. Arguable. Is everything that comes after an original fanfiction? It depends if the person's a fan of it or not. I think Mando, all of the new Dave Filoni Star Wars stuff, you can't not call that fan fiction because he is the ultimate Star Wars fan. And he's doing great things. There are things that he says that I don't agree with, but so on the fanfiction thing, does professional amateur make a difference to you? Like, you've asked, is Star Wars The Old Republic a fanfiction? I don't know, I wouldn't say. But my instinct suggests that it makes a difference if a person is contractually obliged to write another story or a continuation of a universe who was not responsible for the for conceiving it, or the original, as opposed to an amateur who, you know, by definition, amateur, loves it. Finding good fan fiction is like finding a diamond in the rough. Again, it's difficult because it's really not to my tastes. I feel that if you've got abilities as a writer or an artist, as a creative problem solver, why restrict yourself? Especially if you're not on the line for payment. Like, I've seen an awful lot of criticism of Rian Johnson doing Star Wars, right? But when he's given other material or free reign, or he's not limited by that sort of stuff anymore, you know, by someone else's IP guidelines, he can make amazing things. Like Knives Out is a brilliant, brilliant movie. Looper is a wonderful movie. Another time travel movie. Christopher Nolan. Two outstanding Batman movies, in my view. One really great one. You can make your minds up, Rich. But when he's given, you know, free reign to write his own stuff, we get Inception, and we get Tenet, and we get Interstellar, although his brother helped him with that one. Or maybe his brother wrote it and Christopher Nolan chipped in. I don't know the dynamic. I don't know. I prefer originality. Unfortunately, we are bound by the need to be commercially successful, and I think that comes from familiarity. You know, your audience has familiarity with an IP or a universe, and there's an awful lot less that you have to do when you're writing a story in an existing or established universe than if you were to have to make a new one yourself. And then you get all kinds of weird complaints. Like, I remember people were complaining at The Force Awakens because it felt too familiar. What kind of bullshit is that? Like, really? You watched a Star Wars movie that is a direct sequel to The Return of the Jedi, and you're complaining that it's familiar. Finding Matt and Trey, who make South Park, have a 6-day deadline and they don't mind being limited. Oh yeah, totally. Well, I think when you've got a sitcom like that, I think you can call South Park a sitcom, that has been going 23 years, you've got to take, you've got to take measures to keep it fresh. And if you find that it's going stale, if you're processing too long, then I'm all for it. Do you know what? In the games industry, I think that you were all familiar with stories of crunch and very long dev cycles. I am all for having shorter dev cycles and actually saying to people, do you know what? This game is going to take 18 months to develop. You have to solve the problem as though time is ticking. Because I think a lot of the trouble that you get into is this kind of comfortable thing during the dev cycle, where you don't have that fire breath of deadline down the back of your neck, and it's comfortable and you can ruminate and process on the same ideas, and then change comes about for its own sake. You're no longer solving problems, you're looking at the same thing and it's becoming tiresome, so you think, do you know, it's been a while. Let's do something new. And then one little refactor leads to a big refactor, leads to a bigger refactor. And then all of a sudden you're behind schedule, you're rushing it out, and it's not nearly as good as if you'd stuck to your guns. 4 deaths, 26 minutes, I apologise. That's terrible performance. Still, onward. Oh, I'm in favour for it. Do you know, narrow goalposts are really great when you're trying to solve creative problems. A blank canvas is among the most intimidating things for a creative, because you're completely unlimited. But I come from a world where commercial artistry is about problem solving, and I'm not saying game development is that world. The world that I'm talking about is art school, graphic design, tight deadlines, low budgets, versus output that is as good as you can muster. You know, be good, fast, or cheap. Pick two. Unfortunately, the world's changed. You've got to be all three now. Descent. Prison built to contain one of the elite Proteus hunters. I'm going to go back to lobby. Oh, this bit. Chatting and preamble. I'm going to leave the music on in the background, so that we can get into things a little bit. 20 viewers. Thank you for sticking around this morning. We're 45 minutes in nearly. For those that don't know, for those joined, you've seen your notification icon on your phone or on your browser, expecting to see MD's beautiful face. Firstly, I apologise. I am not MD's beautiful face. I'm her lesser half, and in the wake of some pretty tragic news about a week ago, a little over a week ago, MD's taken a hiatus from streaming, and you know, a lot of her communication is limited to Discord server now and Twitter, and I think being on camera is not something that she wants to do for the immediate right now. So I'm doing my bit, keeping her channels ticking over while she collects her thoughts and gets some strength back. But for those of you who are spending the morning with me today and don't know, her mum very sadly passed in the middle of the month, and yeah, it's been very difficult and challenging for her to it's been very challenging, so she's taking a break. But I'll keep things going. I'll make sure that the notifications keep appearing on your phones and give you something to laugh at and chat about. We've had some pretty good discussion this morning with Callie Macus 33 and Gum Gum and stuff about writing and about fan fiction and lovely juicy things, so keep it coming because it's good. I'll do my best to keep an eye on the chat, and I'll do my best to keep the conversation rolling at the same time as playing through this brilliant game, Prodeus, which if you've not seen it, you've seen it now. It's on Steam for about 20 Canadian, so whatever that is, 12 or 15 US. And it's good. It's good. Enjoying it a lot. No more. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I hope you've all had a wonderful Christmas. Lots of drink, lots of food, lots of presents, lots of family, as best as you can manage. Can I ask, what is your thoughts on the ESRB? For ratings? Like PG-13, 18 plus, R, that kind of thing? I think it's good that they do what they do. I think it's good that it's respected. What kind of thing? It feels like a leading question. What's your thoughts on this? Because you've clearly got thoughts on the ESRB and what they do. So you tell me what your issue is, what you like about it, what you don't like about them, and then I can probably tailor a response. I'll freely admit, though, I like to stop talking when my knowledge runs out. The ESRB or PEGI, or the BBFC, they write the rules and we stick to the rules, and fortunately the rules change and they are dynamic to a certain thing. I'm sorry to hear that, Cobus Nell. I'm sure you're not alone. I'm sure lots and lots of people had awful Christmases. I'm sure for lots of people Christmas could go as well as possible and they would still dislike it, but I'm sorry to hear that. Gum Gum, it's not touchy for me at all. You can talk about whatever you like. Okay, let's crack on with some gameplay. I'm sorry the audio drops out when I change these change scenes. It does make me think I need a little 6-button stream deck. But a prison built to contain one of the elite Proteus hunters. Oh, boss time. Excellent. Wonder Woman 1984. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people think it's brill, some people think it's terrible. Standard superhero stuff. But I hope it's good. I'm not moved to pay the $30 Canadian to watch it earlier on HBO. Clearly the movie was not for me. This feels like a boss arena. Time to get some health. This is such a great game. I like. The name is This is Proteus. And it's a lovely little love letter to first-person shooters from the 90s. Ultra low poly by the looks of it. Some very, very clever shading and visuals. Graphics tech, I like it. And a good soundtrack too. It's the meeting of some metal and some electronica, which I like. Ah, shit. Don't like you. Head crabs? Little pains in the neck. Really? So, silent protagonists. Gum gum. I quite like a silent protagonist. Are you talking about silent protagonists in games? I.e. Gordon Freeman. One of the most important things I think any kind of art form has to have in terms of how it appeals to its viewer, reader, player, listener is a way to relate and a way to impart yourself on what the events, impart yourself on the experience of the events as they unfold. In a game, I think one of the most important things is immersion through doing, rather than being told or being read to. So I like games like this one. I am immersed in the doing. This feels like This feels like a test of skill. I don't care about the story, don't really care about who these are, what they're doing. It might serve to, lubricate the experience a little bit, make it slide along quicker. But honestly, don't really care. Just give me a game that will take a couple of minutes to learn how to play, and then test me over 5 or 6 hours. That's what I want. Shit. This is curtains, I think. Yep. If you asked me to make a first-person shooter, it'd be a silent protagonist. Yeah, I mean, getting back to that, like, silent protagonist, there's no voice, so there's no question whether I sound like them when a character talks to me. When the character talks to the protagonist, if the protagonist doesn't reply, I get to imagine that they've responded to my silence. you know? You impart your personality on the experience, and I think that's a hugely important part of immersion into a video game. It depends on what you want to do. One of the things that I find annoying is that in video games is that they still try to approximate the movie-going experience, and games as a medium is so totally different, and it affords you all kinds of opportunities. Yeah, even Half-Life does make some jokes about it, but when it's not making jokes, there's nothing that Gordon does to snap the immersion. I'm playing actually through Black Mesa at the moment, and the team that put that together, I think they've done a pretty good job, but I think some of the kind of cute jokes they've written into it, I find immersion breaking. It's just a little bit too cute, and one of the good things about Half-Life and the original one and the sequel was that they took themselves so seriously, you know. The name is V. I see. At first thought it was Doom with RTX. No, it's its own thing. Say hi to MD. Been a long time since the N7 days. Yeah, the ponytail joke. I thought that was shit. It's like, that's not what Gordon Freeman was about. See, that's why I don't like fan fiction. Gordon Freeman didn't have a ponytail in Half-Life 1. Oh shoot. Are they fighting each other? That's weird. That gun sounds just like the BFG from Quake 3. Sorry, I'm a bit quiet and a bit thinky at the moment. If you were the viewer, you'd probably prefer that I was a bit quieter. My live chat stopped updating. I think is that a burn? That no one's chatting. I think it's only Gum Gum that's saying anything. Don't like the look of that. Cobus Nell, yeah, ArtStation is good, and you did have some drawings that you wanted to share last time. Oh, hello. Useless. Oh. Turn it off, turn it back on again. Exit YouTube, go back in. I mean, you're not missing anything super exciting because I appear to be lost. I think if people want to play couch co-op, they can and should. MD and I play couch co-op. Dr. Mario a lot these days. We got the Mario Kart radio control cars over Christmas, and if you've not seen that, it's a bit of a phenomenon. It's really very, very good, and that involves two people playing at the same time, granted on two consoles. But was couch co-op a product of its time? Ah, shit. What's going on? Yeah, the return of couch co-op is a brave statement because that asserts that it went away, and has it gone away, or have the people that used to play it grown out of video games? This is boss, isn't it? It's interesting actually, rereading the question, has couch co-op gone away? Co-op being the operative thing. This isn't fun anymore. God, an hour 10 and I'm failing. That did feel easy. As a Half-Life player, would you care if Half-Life 3 came out, even if it didn't revolutionize tech? No. I think what Half-Life revolutionized back then was, or Half-Life 2, because Half-Life 1, I don't think it revolutionized tech as much as it gave us cinematic storytelling in a first-person shooter. And at the end of the 90s, there were only a few games that were doing that. Unreal 1, Half-Life 1. Let me see. I guess System Shock 2, perhaps. Even though that was more of a first-person RPG rather than a shooter. It's not just Valve. Every company that has a platform has to think that way. What can I do on my platform that no one else can do? What am I doing with my game to make sure that people are buying my platform as well as my software? Half-Life 2 shipped Steam. That was the only way that you could play it. Every platform holder, Microsoft, Sony, condition of developing games as a first-party developer is, how can I shift hardware at the same time as shifting software units? And you've got to think of ways to do unique stuff with the platform that you've got. I think Half-Life 2 set the bar at the time, and it's a bar that everyone else has to stick to. Everything that comes out has to be shinier, better, faster, broader, deeper. But I would love to play more Half-Life. I would love to get back into that universe with Gordon Freeman as the silent protagonist. And I wouldn't care that it wasn't rewriting any rules or anything. Just give me more of that. 12 viewers and an hour and a quarter in. Thank you for sticking with it for this long. And watching me fail. 3 deaths in the last 20 minutes, I suppose, isn't too bad. But it's a good game, and I think it's a great game, and I think we're getting close to the end. Because this is early access, it's not quite as big. It was kickstarted. One of the levels that we played through last time was called In Memoriam, I think, and from what I could gather, it was a list of the backers, and their names were all over the level, which was really nice, and it was a good level too. But this is a great game. I'm keen to learn more about the developer because they've done a really good job, I think. Really great job. Futuristic retro vibe. Good afternoon, mountain time. 10 minutes past 12 midday in the mountains. I hope you're all doing well wherever in the world you are. What would you say is the hard part of world building from your point of view? The logic being made. What happens, therefore this happens. Yeah, but I think as a logic, I think that's true of any world. I think the most difficult thing of world building. See, it's difficult because I'm not a writer and I don't write premise for games. I have done in the past, but not that anyone's ever seen, or not that it's, not that I've done it for money, as in a professional capacity. The hard bit, in my view, the bit that I've seen people have most difficulty with is it's tough to say, because what I'm having difficulty with in other people's world building is something personal. It's about there is an idea maker, but I think one of the things that you've got to lay down when you're world building is tone. And I think the events and the aspects and the details have to be a consistent tone so that people can start understanding what to expect. I think when you give someone something that is out of character, different, it jars them out of immersion. And I think immersion is the goal, regardless of the art form, regardless of the medium. I think you've got to guarantee a level and a duration of engagement. Like, if it's a book, it's got to be a page turner. You can't have the reader put the book down before they're finished. If it's a movie, someone said, the length of a movie has to be proportional to the volume of the human bladder, and I kind of get that. And this is why 2.5 hours seems to be the magic duration. But within that thing, you've got to make sure that immersion is as closely guaranteed as possible. And one of the things that you can do to nearly guarantee snapping person out of immersion is to change the tone without them expecting it. If you change the tone and then someone, it's within the logic of that universe or within the logic of that story, it strikes the person as obvious and surprising and engaging, and it deepens their immersion further. I'm thinking the introduction of the Matrix to Neo, or the introduction of the Matrix to Thomas Anderson in The Matrix 1. That's a tonal shift from the real world to the Matrix. Or it's not even the real world, from the Matrix to the real world, if you've seen it. The tonal change is absolutely within keeping it of that universe that the Wachowskis created. I'm trying to think of another multiverse movie. Everything's within tone. I think that seems to be the keen thing. If you can get a tone that all of your creative aspects fall into naturally and organically, then I think writing within that universe and within that tone becomes a much more straightforward thing, exercise, and what's right and what's wrong after that for you. Like, what risks to take, how to steer the viewer, reader. You take them on a journey, and it's got to be a journey. like MD and I started watching through Raised by Wolves last night. We watched, I think, 3 episodes, and that changes tone quite a lot, but it changes tone within the context of expectation. It's a story about human children being raised by androids as part of a last-ditch attempt by one side, losing side of a war. And there are lots of gear changes. I suppose maybe that's it. It's not less tonal shift, it's more gear change. But it's a brilliant series so far, directed by Ridley Scott and his son. It's great. But Gum Gum, I would think, the logic of it, you get to choose, but the tone, you have to, I think you have to maintain a consistent tone. I think, in retrospect, that's what I didn't like about the Hobbit trilogy, as opposed to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, was there was lots of kind of singing, and the humour was off tone, as well as, there are other problems that I can't remember, but one thing you have to say about the Lord of the Rings trilogy is it's an absolute consistency of tone throughout. Started watching that again a couple of days ago. Got the 4K of it. It's gorgeous. Narnia also yeah, you see, now Narnia I think is a really good example, because it's a fantasy portal movie, right? Basically, you walk through the fur coats and then you're in Narnia. But it's also, it's what, wartime? 1940s? I forget. It's been about 30 years since I read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I think because we are here in the modern day, 80 years after the beginning of the Second World War, sorry. I think their real world is a totally separate world for us too now. So the suspension of disbelief can start right at the beginning of the film, because it's still otherworldly, and then their fantasy is still proportional. It's not a jump through time. It's how does a 1940s World War II child who has been shipped off to the country deal with British wartime. Yeah, it's fascinating. They were mates, weren't they? Clive Staples Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. They were part of the what was it called? Was it the Tea Club or something? Or yeah, they were contemporaries. The Inklings, yeah, right. But yeah, I think for Tolkien to write his fantasy epic, and then C.S. Lewis to write his, and then for them to be different, I think is a very good thing. Different but similar. But anyway, 14 viewers, moderate numbers. Let's continue. Get back to some gameplay. What's next? The Hazard. An acid drainage canyon. Scientists are scouring it for runes and Proteus tech. Right. Well, Gum Gum, isn't there there's only 7 story types? Isn't that the thing? There's hero's journey, blah blah blah, something else. I don't know. So, I think it goes back to what we were talking about with Callimachus. When you've, hundreds of years, thousands of years of authorship, thousands of years of literary history, and there are 7 stories that you can pick to fit your experience around. Go off that, go away from that at your peril, because you will lose your reader. You know, conveniently swerving the bigger question, you know, does art need an audience to be art? Save that for another stream. Anyway, Hazard. Onward. What have we got? We got a shotgun. We got no shields. Lots of ammo for the sniper rifle, which makes me think I'll be sniping a bit. Shoot the glass. Of course it's on a time limit. Oh, shit. No, it absolutely doesn't. But it depends on what you define art as. Calamachus. I mean, I stumbled on a definition for what art is when I was at university that I like, that suits my cause and my purpose really well. But I would ask what the point of defining art is for you. I think the definition of art has to be purposeful, and it has to actually offer you something useful. If a definition of art helps your cause, that's a great thing. But it's got to be in servitude of great work, I believe. Some art needs a story, I believe. But again, it depends on what you define art as. I think that had Doppler effect in its audio, which was nice. It did. Good. Callimachus, music is the best example. What story does a Bach concerto have? That's a pretty narrow view. A Bach concerto is a composition on a time-based medium, so it has a beginning and an end and a middle bit, and it takes the listener on a journey. So it doesn't have to take them from place to place. It has dynamics, has loud bits, has fast bits, slow bits, quiet bits, pacing. That's a pretty narrow view of what a story is. Shit. This is a pretty narrow view of what gaming is, from me. Personal question. How many stories is too much? Like for me, I mainly fall back on 3 stories to create a wider world or give a whole other eyesight. Hints I make my stories. This happens, therefore this happens, or this happens. Is that a personal question? When it's too much characters in a story, mine's just the basic 3 or 3 groups. The Trinity. Hello. What's this now? Gum Gum. Honestly, my view to that kind of question is something a little bit more pragmatic about the story that I know I want to tell. So if I know I wanted to tell XYZ story with ABC people, it becomes a problem that I've got to solve. And if it means solving it with 8 people or 7 groups, it's about finding the most elegant way without the story becoming too bloated Because if it becomes too bloated, it might become too confusing, or just not lean enough, or you go off book and you start telling other stories that just have no consequence on the main thread. I remember I've watched the appendices for Lord of the Rings trilogy a lot, and one of the complaints that people talk about most often is that Tom Bombadil was left out. And the rationale that they brought to it was you've got such a massive world and such a sprawling story. How do you keep it efficient and tight? And they said, you know what, if it doesn't pertain to the ring itself, don't include it. And it means that you are culling and cutting an awful lot of really well-loved narrative from what goes on and what people hear and see. But it meant that they could tell the story they wanted to tell efficiently, cleanly, and there was no fat. I mean, story has to move people. It has to move the characters from one bit to the next. That's the vehicle, right? Or the road. And if the characters aren't being moved along the road, maybe you need to look at the story again, so that it can be trimmed, less fat, less slow, better paced. This is very satisfying, he says while being killed. Do you know, it's strange, it makes me think of something that I was switched onto a few years ago called the Bechdel test, which you can apply to films, and if I'm getting it right, I'm sure someone in the chat will remember it correctly for me, but it means that if a film passes the Bechdel test, it means that there are two women, or two female characters, who have screen time talking about something which doesn't involve any of the male characters. And lots of films fail, lots of films pass. My instinct when I found it or heard about it for the first time was, you know, is this a measure of quality filmmaking? Is there a correlation between movies that pass the Bechdel test and the Metacritic scores? And I don't know, I didn't look. It's not my job to look. But I know that some people around the internet and around the world are using the Bechdel test to work out what films they would prefer to watch. Can someone fill it in? And what's the goal of appraising a film according to that test? Two named characters, named female characters, right. So an example of this would be Star Trek Nemesis. Troy and Crusher talking about how their boobs feel firm, without wanting to appear misogynistic. That would be a conversation that applies. Because it doesn't involve any of the fellas, they don't name any of the fellas. And it's not about any of them. So I've got a question, because there are people that know the rules far finer than I do. Callimachus and Gum Gum. Does the conversation that the two named female characters have, does it have to pertain directly to the plot, or can it be independent from the plot, or does it have to be independent from the plot? Is it just idle conversation, or can it be any? Can it be just a conversation about plot devices that just doesn't mention any of the male characters? Even in other countries, I hear they use it as a rating system. So, a rating system for who? And is it a badge of quality? The only reason I ask is I'm keen to learn. I'm not making any statements. But we've had a good conversation this morning about writing and the efficiency of storytelling. And if it turns out that the Bechdel test is about inefficiencies in storytelling, I'll be disappointed, but it's a badge of quality. Because two named characters occupying screen time or page time to talk about something that doesn't really advance the story seems to be a waste of frames or a waste of pages. And it goes both ways. I mean, you know, named male characters talking about stuff that doesn't involve women or the story, I would consider that a waste of frames too. Shit. Come on, Sadler. Wonder how it rates on romance. You mean male-female straight romance, surely? Because there are other romances. So the Bechdel test is not a sign of quality, and it was not meant to be one, right? So, what's the point then? Again, just trying to learn. It's a measure of representation of women in movies. Okay. Surely women in movies is its own representation, not women talking about something different. Okay, so question 4. Who is the Bechdel test for? Bare minimum of what could be considered female representation. Like I say, I'm keen to know. I just want to explore stuff. One of the problems that I see with topics like this is that people make very, very summary judgment without full possession of facts. And my understanding of it was very, very superficial. And I was judging it as something which was serving only of a small group and was not in the best interest of filmmaking or storytelling. But, you know, the acid test for me is you take stuff which is common sense wise, recognised to be great examples of writing or filmmaking or storytelling, whatever, and apply it to see if it passes. And I'm pretty sure that there are classics that we would all agree were classics that would fail it, and its role as defining quality bar diminishes. Something in here. Three requirements. 1, there would be at least 2 named women. 2, they would speak to one another. 3, that their conversation would be about something other than a man. Okay. Originally it was supposed to be an inside joke. Speaking of conversations, how would you say you go about dialogue? I don't go about dialogue. I leave that to writers. An inside joke, I'm fascinated. The Bechdel test was an inside joke. Inside what? Was it kind of like an eye rolly? Well, you know, we've only got 2 women in this story and neither of them talk to one another, and or when they do talk to one another, they talk about the fellas. I'm fascinated by it. Fascinated that someone might choose to not watch a movie because it didn't pass. Oh shit. Oh. This was not clever. As the conversations about art began to be about whose stories are being told and what perspectives do our culture honour, respect and represent. Fawn's greetings. 20 people. God, you flatter me. Sticking with me for this long. I better go and see what MD's up to. It's been 2 hours. Let us continue. Let's get back to the overworld and let us save and quit, because I think it's time we wrapped this up. Let us get to this bit. Because for the last 6-7 minutes, we'll wrap up soon, but I want to thank everyone that's stuck with us for the really great conversation. Gum, you've been brilliant. Calimachus, you've been brilliant too. To be honest, I try not to please most groups. I do wish to add an about learn for what... You see, this is the thing, like... I'm far more enthusiastic about the creation of art that entertains and pleases and stimulates, and I would rather stimulate a small group with intense ideas rather than have really, really watered down concepts for a massive group. You know what I mean? It became a signifier of what could be considered a narrative that could represent a woman. Yeah. Again, I have no feelings one way or another. Maybe that's buried misogyny. I don't know. I'm sure the people that write the rules that we all have to live by, if that's not too cynical a sentiment, will correct me or tell me what to feel. But honestly, I don't... The only part of this stuff I don't like is that I walk on eggshells fearing that I'm gonna inflame somebody. And I don't like that. I've believed in the equality of everything as long as I've been alive, and if people have been downtrodden, it's not been by me. and it's not been by anyone that I have consorted with. And to think that there are people who genuinely, honestly have had this happen to them is a real disappointment to me. And I will do everything that I can to make sure that they feel fairly done to, or fairly done by. But when it comes to the stuff that I make, or the stuff that I'm involved in, I'm far less moved to pander. I want to create a rich, intense experience, regardless of what I'm working on, and move people. And it disappoints me that a story can be weakened at the expense of accommodating or pandering. I don't know whether these are terms that inflame people, or it's not supposed to, but frame time not spent on advancing the story towards its conclusion, I think, is wasted time. Whether it's a conversation between two women or two men, I just don't care, if the story is about, I don't know, who am I? Does it matter? Probably not. When you were not part of that group. Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that I have with somebody, like, there's a sentiment of, you only move, society moves as quickly as its slowest members, and if we've got to experience a dip in the intensity of artwork because some people feel that they've been badly done to, and I'm not talking about female representation or any kind of representation, but let's say we were to dumb down everything. We go back to something that Gum Gum asked. We were about the ESRB, and let's say that something that qualified for a 15 rating or a 16 rating or whatever they are, it had to have a bare minimum, or it had to have an established level of complexity of plot, because it was deemed inappropriate that 16-year-olds were given a they were given too complex a plot, and there was nothing salacious, there was no nudity, there was no harsh language, there was no violence, but the plot was just too clever for what the ESRB deemed appropriate for a group of 16-year-olds. That absolutely infuriates me. Like, if that was to happen, you're watering down an opportunity to make a chili pepper of a piece of artwork because people might not think that some are ready for it. It's like, come on. That's how you work out what is good for you, or what you like and what you don't like. And with everything being a popularity contest, if numbers are the chief metric, as in just numbers, like this is the number of people that watched X or Y, and it's like, God, let's just find the base level of what people want to watch and give them that. Don't challenge them. Don't try to expand their minds. It just infuriates me. One of my favourite films as a kid, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, apparently that was a watered down version of the film it was supposed to be, because American audiences, their focus groups, found it too complicated or too intelligent, and they got lost during it. And it was like, well, why tell that story? So it was watered down. And if people in the chat have seen it, yeah, no, I agree. It's just not healthy. Like, as I say, I'm far more passionate about making art that has integrity tuned to itself. No, it's not the same thing, and it's not supposed to be the same thing, Kali Matches. It's supposed to be an allegory, an example of something similar, that you've got to dumb down something to cater for outspoken groups. And that's the bit that I don't appreciate. I mean, again, who am I? I'm not a creative powerhouse in the film industry. I'm a consumer of film. And it will do what it wants to do. People are not going to listen to someone like me. What I'm saying is my opinion, and my opinion is that I am a far more enthusiastic pursuer of uncompromising artwork than I am of making sure that everyone that sees the piece can be world of equal people, like really equal as those that made the rules will have to abide to, claim that we are, you think that's possible? I don't know. I don't know. Don't look to me for the answer to that. I don't know. It's a far bigger question than I was prepared to address. Or prepared to engage in. No, inclusivity does not mean dumbing down stuff. Inclusivity at the expense of good, rich storytelling or visuals. It means bringing it into a broader realm of appeal. And if your idea is to appeal to more, then you are going to disappoint some. I think that is a fact. Not a fact. It's an extrapolation of a circumstance that I am familiar with. Inclusivity does not mean dumbing things down. I agree. My example was in dumbing things down, and it was an allegory. But it means that inclusivity means including more, and if that means filing off the sharp edges, then you lose people who like sharp edges. You lose how deep something can puncture. You know what I mean? And in my view, the objective of art is to engage and move, and if you don't have a force that's as heavy or fast moving, you're not going to move people as far or as significantly. I guess, Kalimachus, you and I can differ. Two hours, 1 minute. Oh God, we've clicked over. I really need to wrap this up. I didn't put the music back on. Sorry. So yeah. Like I say, this is my view, and I've been in the games industry a while. I do not have exposure to the film industry or people who write books. They don't engage with me, and I don't have the opportunity to engage with them much. But what I try to aspire to be is a creative problem solver, and that means having a brief, and that means satisfying that brief. And if the result is deemed to be of high quality, I need to know what the quality is going to be measured against. So, exploring what the Bechdel test is and what it means to people is important to me, because if that's a measure of quality, then it's going to factor into some of the stuff that I have to work on at some point. Does it mean losing people who like sharp edges, or does it mean people who love a specific kind of sharp edge? It's interesting. Games Lord, I'm not a black and white type of person. I'm very much an appreciator of spectrum, a celebrator of the spectrum. I think it means risking losing people who like sharp edges, and if you're telling a story that involves sharp edges, you don't want your story changed because you've got to accommodate people who are litigious against sharp edges, or people who will take you to court over the sharpness of your edge. Cobus Nell, share your link, please do. Love to see it. You and I think, are very similar. You are pencil rendering. When I was doing traditional stuff, that's what I was doing. Actually working on a portrait of MD in pencils at the moment. Excellent, thank you. Everybody check out that link. Thank you all for your stimulating conversation. I promise only to bring an authentic opinion. I don't mean to rewrite the books. I don't want to be responsible for that. But thank you for engaging, and thank you for stimulating. Great conversation this morning. I think that's it. I'm going to go and see what MD is up to, see if she's doing okay. She's probably baking up a storm. But when the same sharp edge keeps being sharpened, you risk cutting people, and that's got to be acceptable. That's got to be acceptable. If I want to make the artwork I want to make, to hell with people. That's how you work out whether you like my artwork or me as an artist. And if you don't, that's okay. But don't tell me that I have to make it likable by you. I think every artist has that right. Right then, I'm going to wrap that up. Thank you everybody. Gum Gum, Cali Matchus, Futuristic Retro Vibe, Cobus Nell. It's been a pleasure and an honour. And for the 10 others who have stuck with us for the last 2 hours, you're legends. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Look after each other over the Christmas period. It's darker for some than it is for others. What I need to finish with. I'll kind of repeat the reason that you're seeing my bald head instead of MD's pretty face. She's taking a hiatus at the moment because she lost her mum, sadly, pretty recently, and it's a challenging time, as you can appreciate. She's in Canada, her family's in California. Mine is in England, and we usually repair back to our homes for Christmas. So it's been challenging. Under the surface, it's been challenging for the last couple of weeks, but it's meant that she and I have spent our first Christmas together, which has been wonderful. But in the wake of her mum's passing, plenty of people in her community have reached out with offers of condolence, and it's hugely powerful. Don't underestimate it. She reads all of the messages, appreciates all the sentiments, and it gives us both a real charge. Some very kind souls have also offered to, they've pinged and said, give me your address. I would love to send her a card or a gift or something. What I would suggest is, under those circumstances, if you are moved to offer a gesture like that, reach out to a local or your cancer support or research charity of preference and offer a donation in her mum's memory. Her mum was named Petra, and that would put sparkle into MD's eyes without doubt. So again, thanks to everyone for very kind consideration and for giving her the room to breathe. Granted, it's come at the disadvantage of being stuck with me, playing first-person shooters instead of watching MD use character creators and play RPGs. But like I said at the beginning, I'm just keeping the channels ticking over. Yes, please be safe, look after each other, keep talking to people, and I'll probably see you soon.